big visits this past week, we had Jamari Howard and Jordan Seaton, both 4-star athletes, one offensive lineman, the other being a cornerback. And Raymond, obviously our man there, who just signed an extension, is pushing hard for Howard, the cornerback. And Seaton, we spoke about him last week. He keeps kind of flipping between a 4 and 5-star. I think he's like the second or third inside offensive lineman ranked right now. So two big additions there. I would love to get back to DBU University. And then again, I think offensive lineman is something that is always going to be a high on my radar with us having 2 O-linemen. Brandon, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, for Jamari, at least, it's also important for people to realize that, yes, he's at this point now a relatively long-term commit to Michigan State, but they also just went through a change at cornerbacks coach. That's Brandon. Literally last week, they hired their new cornerbacks coach. So the guy that Jamari Howard committed to, not there anymore. This is one of those openings where you go, okay, well, he committed to a school, we know, but oftentimes when you're committing to a school, you're committing to those coaches that are going to develop you and try to get you to the NFL. That ain't happening right now because he committed to Michigan State. Coaching staff has changed a bit. So Jamari Howard, I would say, is, yes, committed, obviously, still, but it's more open, I think, especially with him taking visits this early. I'm not committing, or I'm not saying he's going to flip or commit to Florida, but I will say that this isn't just him taking advantage of visits because they're available. This is him saying, okay, I'm open to this change, especially with Corey Raymond being locked up again with that new extension.
Dave?
Yeah, Brandon makes a good point there with re-signing Corey Raymond, extending him. So a lot of kids look at that. They want to know that their cornerbacks coach is going to be there for a long time, and they did extend Corey Raymond. So that's one good note there. And having him stay at Florida an extra day on his visit was huge also, because obviously if you enjoy your visit, you're really going to last one day. Now you're going to say, okay, well, I'll stay an extra day. And I think, talking to Corey Raymond, one of the best cornerbacks coaches in the nation, also helps in aiding that as well. And even in an interview he had with a Florida State beat writer, he said, I mean, I'm still strong with Michigan State, but you know how recruiting goes. I mean, that quote right there just goes to show you, hey, you know how recruiting goes. And as Brandon said, new cornerbacks coach Michigan State. Got to be Florida State for this guy. I mean, especially Corey Raymond on staff. If this is the cornerback that Florida really absolutely wants, you got to be Florida State here. Now, it could be a guy that took a couple visits and they were interested, and maybe somebody else comes down the road that they might be interested in. I don't know. I'm not in those rooms. I don't talk to those guys. But for him to stay an extra day and not do that at Florida State says a lot.
And something too, that was a weird sound. To kind of look at it with the quarterback already locked in, the running back already locked in my opinion, I see you guys talking like, hey, what's the status on O-line? I feel like some big O-linemen, the linebackers locked in, which is like the quarterback of the defense, right? You kind of have those sound positions. Where do we go to next? It's got to be the trenches, in my opinion. And that's where I believe you'll start getting those flashy pieces, right? The DBs, the wide receivers to follow suit. They say, wow, these guys are really putting together something special here. I will say Miami, they did a great job of building the trenches last year. They did it a little late, right? Because they didn't land a good quarterback, in my opinion, at a 3 to low 4-star quarterback. They did pull off that last running back at the end there, but imagine if they were able to land those Francis guys and Sampson a little bit sooner, how much more of an impact it would have had on the other pieces. So to me, it feels like that has to be a priority as well. And we have had a ton of offensive linemen visiting. One from Ponte Vedra, a couple Florida boys, low on the star list, but high on the measurements, right? They fit the size and stature of what Billy and company are looking for. So I would really love to see us pull an O-line sooner rather than later, honestly, before we land anything else, because again, I speak to the O-line due to the fact because we have 2 offensive linemen. It should be a very high priority, and we should always be in the top of landing one of these guys. We knock one of those dominoes down, and we can knock a 5-star or high 4-star edge / D lineman down. We should be really fired up to how this class is going to pan out, in my opinion. I feel like that's kind of where we were a little behind the 8 ball on those positions last year, if you ask me. I felt like we did really well with wide receivers, which was great, but we were a little behind on landing the linemen sooner than I would have liked. So